Brooke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I am excited too. And it's so funny in the entrepreneur world where there's people all over the country that you connect with and you talk to. We've actually gotten to talk twice in the last week, which it's rare. It's a rarity. So I feel like we're old friends. And we met at Amberly's event. I don't even know when that was, back in March.
Yeah.
And I remember you speaking about how you have 6 children. And I'm sure this is a topic that's touched on a lot. And I walked over to you in the green room and I was like, so why 6 children? Right. And so we ended up having an amazing conversation about life and business and who we are and really got to know each other. And I'm just excited to share your journey with my audience. But why don't we take
Yeah.
a second and talk about who is Brooke today? And then
Mm.
we'll break down how you got there.
Who is Brooke today? Well, Brooke is a really driven, ambitious individual, not just for success and money, but for impact and for speaking truth into as many people as possible. Truth that, it is possible that you can have it all, whatever your all is, without losing it all. I think so many people hold themselves back from success and really going after things and that like ambition and drive that they have because they're so afraid of what might happen in the process. And I was one of those people. And so a huge part of who I am today, which is not who I always was, is that person that just really wants to empower people and give them permission to go after it no matter what their circumstances are, whether they have 6 kids or they're in a wheelchair or they're starting when they're 60 or whatever those circumstances might be, that you can change your life and you can create the life that you want. And I think like so many people, that comes from the reality that, I didn't used to think that way. And I didn't used to think I could change my life and I could change who I was. And, once the lights turned on and I figured that out, I was like, I want to help other people realize like they can change their lives and they can go out and reinvent themselves at any time. So that's who I am now. Is I'm like a huge believer in the possibilities, super ambitious and driven for good and for impact and not just for money, because I think you and I both agree like, money is great, success is great, but like there's only so much money you really need and you want to go out there and you want to help other people succeed too. So,
Yeah, and the idea is when you're creating such a positive impact in the world, the money kind of finds you, right? Like I have more people asking me how they can pay me money than I ask people to pay me money. It's a very odd scenario because I live in this world of giving and teaching and promoting and how can I help you? And you're very much the same way as far as like, I'm just here to serve and whatever comes of it, comes of it. Now, the crazy part is you've been able to build a 7-figure empire while having 6 children, while in the process. And one thing that I love about my wife is she was a single mama too, and she was able to pursue a lot of her dreams and get certifications and this and that and really become who she wanted to become. But she has 2. And so you have 6. Like, let's talk a little bit about what that's been like and how you're able to manage the craziness of being a mom and raising 6 children and building a large
yeah.
business.
Yeah, so I have several businesses. One is a 7-figure business and a couple are 6-figure businesses. And so I've created, multiple streams of income in health and in coaching and in events and experiences. And I think the number one thing I would say is that I had to become comfortable with a certain amount of chaos. Like I had to
Mm.
become comfortable with letting go of what I thought life should look like and what I thought my house should look like and what I thought parenting was supposed to look like. And I had to become comfortable with something else that would also include a certain amount of chaos. Now, some people might think that's crazy. You shouldn't have chaos. Like we need to have order and everything. It's like, yes, I think people that say that probably don't have a lot of other humans in their life. And when you have a lot of humans in your life, and when they're young, mine are all 16 and under. My youngest is 5 at the time we're recording this podcast. Is there had to be a certain amount of release of control, like letting go of control and embracing messy and
Mm.
embracing some chaos and being okay with that. Because having like when I started in the entrepreneurial space, I was 37. I'll be 45 this summer. And I didn't have any business experience, any entrepreneurial experience. And I had a 6-week old. My 5th was 6 weeks old. And then I went on a couple years later to have a 6th at almost 40 years of age. I also
Wow.
homeschooled for many of those years, my kids, because the educational system in Hawaii isn't awesome. And we also kind of live this sort of gypsy lifestyle where we like to have experiences in travel. And so there were a lot of things on my plate. And there were a lot of things before I was an entrepreneur that I thought were really, really important that I realized are not actually really that important. What the most important thing in being a parent and being an entrepreneur came actually from this wisdom that my mom gave me. And I used to be so hard on myself. Anybody here listening that's a perfectionist, that wants to do things right, that doesn't want to make mistakes, that doesn't want to mess up, that's so terrified that if they don't show up in the right way for their kids or those that they love, everything is going to fall apart and it's all going to be your fault. That's how I felt, right? It's like the weight of the world and my children's future and how they grow up and how much therapy they need. It's all dependent on me. And my mom was visiting at one point and I was being really hard on myself. And she's like, honey, when your kids go to bed at night, do they feel loved? Do they know that you love them? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, then you're doing your job. Then
Mm.
you're doing your job. And so this whole like journey over the last 7 years or so, I've made sure to make time every day to let my kids know that I love them and to spend a little bit of time with them every evening, doing the snuggles, the good night. And it's 6 of them. So like the bedtime routine is like 30 minutes. It's like,
Yeah,
this is
it's a
not
long
a
time.
fast. Yeah, but sometimes it's really like the only time I have to like one-on-one connect with each of them. And so going back to the messy part, it's like if you're choosing to be an entrepreneur and you're a parent and you have a lot of young kids, I think it's the biggest piece is letting go of that perfectionism and allowing things to be messy and chaotic and deciding what's the most important thing. Well, for me, it was just making sure that my kids feel love and know that they're loved at least once a day. We have that connection piece. And other than that, it's crazy sometimes.
I mean, I can't even imagine, but I love the idea of letting go of perfection and embracing the chaos as best you can. And I want to talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you when you finally realized that. And
Yeah.
then what does chaos now look like for you with your new perspective about it all?
Yeah, I mean, so what it looked like for me was honestly like a huge exhale because I was for the first few years in entrepreneurship and being a mom, I was still doing everything. And so at the time, like, you could look at from the outside and look in and be like, well, you had a stable marriage, you had, a husband who was successful. And so of course you could go and be successful and build these businesses. And while it's true, I certainly had specific privileges and things in my life that were really nice. He worked 80 to 90 hours a week. And so he was never home. I was essentially like parenting the kids, feeding the kids, educating the kids, doing all the things, didn't have any family that lived around us. And so didn't have a lot of support. And like many people, especially women, we want to look like we can do it all. And so for the first 3 years, I was like silently suffering, trying to do everything, not asking for any help because I didn't want to harm my kids and I didn't want, them to have to pick up the slack. And finally, 3 years in, I was like, I am going to like lose my effing mind. Like if I keep trying to do all of this stuff for my kids and for everyone else, I am going to lose it. And so it became me like deciding that instead of doing everything for my kids, I was going to teach them how to do for themselves. And I was going to involve them in the process. And I shifted from being this person that thought to be a good mom means I do everything for my kids and I take care of everything for them to actually what I believe now, which is radically different, is that the less I do for my kids, the better it's going to be for them. The more I empower them and I'm like, hey, can you do this? I'm basically saying, I have confidence in you. I know you're capable. I believe in you. Even if you're going to load the dishwasher in the wrong way, and I really think it sucks, and you wash the reds with the whites, like I have confidence in you. I believe in you. The more self-sufficient and independent and solution oriented like they can be, and the more things they know how to do by the time they're 18 and they leave the house, that to me now is like a good measure of a parent. And that took so much weight off of my shoulders because I didn't have a spouse that was at home, like helping do all these things. I didn't have a nanny. I didn't have a house cleaner. And I had 5 kids in the beginning that were 9 and under.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. So it was really like involving them in the process and shifting this paradigm of what I thought it meant to be a good parent to what I really feel deep, deep in my soul and in my heart, what it means to be a good parent, which is empowering them and then also being a model to them and not being this self-sacrificial, woe is me, look at me just giving everything to my kids and giving up my whole life and being this like martyr. It's like, I used to be a martyr and I look back on that person, I'm like, oh my, like now I'm like, I want to be a model, like me being ambitious and having goals and them seeing me fail and get up and try again and succeed and fail and cry and go through all the emotions. Like I am modeling to them so many more lessons than I could be modeling if the floors were perfectly mopped and the kitchen was perfect and I was making homemade bread every day. And I have
Wow.
nothing against those things for those of you listening that want to do that. Like I have so much admiration for people that, they love to do that. For me, I didn't love to do that. And I was miserable. And I used to think that's what it meant to be a good mom. And now I'm like, for me to be a good mom is really, I want to model for my kids and I want to empower my kids. So it was a whole paradigm shift for me.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you empower somebody to do something, how much they want to do it over
Mhm.
time, right? It's not always the first time, like, oh, why are they
Right.
making me do the laundry the first time or the dishes the first time or whatever, but it gives them a sense of like, I have control over something in my life, right? So I live in a town. Remember the show on TLC, John and Kate Plus 8? I don't know if you ever watched it.
Yes.
Okay, so they live in my town.
No way.
Yeah, and so after they got a divorce, I was living in this apartment complex, and John moved in. And there was a pool at the apartment complex, and I was there one day, and he had come with all 8 children, and they were all in the pool playing. And I remember he walked over to the pool and he goes, "All right, kids, 5 minutes." Not one of them complained. Not one of them said, "Can we have a little bit more time?" And when 5 minutes hit, they got into a line like little ducks and walked back to the apartment. But I realized that, it was really the empowerment of like, you need to help us really create this household and make sure we run, because there's a lot of you, right? And a very similar story to your 6, but I want to transition this to empowering other entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
other thought leaders, other people that want to get into the space. How important is it to empower them through the process versus holding their hand and teaching them exactly what to do step by step?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great book called The Gift of Struggle by Bobby Herrera, and he talks about how struggle is such a gift. And I feel like in leadership and entrepreneurship, if you're in the suck and you're really struggling and you're trying to learn something and figure something out, like sometimes we think we want somebody to sweep in and to rescue us and to do it for us, but that's actually the prime, like sweet spot that you want to be in, that place of struggle where you have to figure out how to get something done. And there was nothing really that I knew how to do when I started my business. I didn't know how to tag someone. I didn't even know what tag meant on Facebook. I wasn't on Instagram. I didn't know how to use Canva. I didn't know how to create a workflow and email. I didn't know how to do any of these things. I had been having babies for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I was in healthcare before. And so like there were so many times where I would feel like this really sucks. Like, when you're in that place, like those of you that are trying to build something, like love the suck. Like the suck, that is the valley. And like in the valley is where the most beautiful things are grown, right? In the valley is where the fruits are grown and the vegetables are grown and the livestock and like all the beautiful things are in the valley, which is like the suck. Like you're developing skills and you're developing character and you're learning how to do all the things in your business that one day maybe you're not going to need to do, but you're going to at least know how to do it. And that is incredibly empowering. It's so empowering. Like if you're in that space and you think it sucks, yay, awesome. You're learning so many things that you could not learn any other way. That's the reality. And you can always ask yourself, what's the lesson in this? Like, what is this here to teach me? Like, what do I need to unlock and uncover in order to get to the next level? Like, it's just that struggle that you're in it's like sacred. It's so beautiful. I've been through so many struggles in building my business, and it really is just this allowing yourself to be in that place and allowing it to be hard and understanding that the hard stuff you're going through right now to figure out your website or figure out your business or build your social media, cool. Like we have all been there and we have all had to do it. And you're going to come through the other side a completely different person. There is no other way. I mean, that's really like, there is no other way. Justin didn't get where he is. I didn't get where I am because I hired a team to come in and create all this stuff for me. It was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm going to make that terrible reel or whatever, or send out that email that's totally lame, but you
I still
only
do that to
learn.
this day. My email game is horrible.
Yes.
Anybody listening to this who knows that it's true. Like it's awful.
Mine's inconsistent. Mine is
Yeah.
inconsistent. Like it's like Jim Rohn says, he's like, set goals for who you will become in the process, right? Set the kind of goals because you want to become a certain kind of person. But the process of becoming is like this process of stretching and growing and doing all these uncomfortable things that you've never done before. And so if it's uncomfortable, yay. It's like, great. Something good is on the other side of this. And so if you're in that, like, I feel you, I've been you, I'm still you, like there's no end to that, growing pains, so to speak. Those of us that are ambitious and trying to do more, like we don't ever arrive, right, Justin?
Yeah.
I have not arrived. I'm still going through a lot of growing pains, but my perspective on it has shifted to like, ooh, like what is this here to teach me? And what next level am I uncovering? Because if it's this hard, it's got to be something good, you
Yeah,
know?
it's like that saying, right? Like life is happening for us, not to us. That has become such a popular saying. So many people say, and the reality is, with the right mindset, it's true, right? To understand what can I learn from this situation. Now, the word that keeps popping into my head as you're talking is resilience.
Hmm.
Being resilient through the tough times. Like how many people hit those tough times, especially say they're in a situation with 6 kids and their husband's working 80, 90 hours a week, or 6 kids and they're a single parent or whatever.
Right.
They give up, they quit, and they go back to what's easy and simple versus
Mhm.
pushing through. Talk a little bit about the power of resilience through your journey, and
Yeah.
how being resilient through it has led to the life that you've been able to create, living in Hawaii, having a home in Florida. Currently, you're talking to me from Nashville, Tennessee. So talk a little bit about the importance of resilience through that.
Yeah, I mean, I love this topic because what a lot of people don't know about me is that since I was a teenager, I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety. And I was never somebody that had confidence. And so emotion, like it was like an emotional hell for me. Like that was the biggest struggle for me in my life. And I came from a lineage and a father that struggled a lot with depression. And so for me getting into business and entrepreneurship, it was hard for me to learn how to be resilient because I didn't necessarily naturally have those skills. My natural predisposition was to be depressed or anxious or worry about things and believe that nothing was going to go right, and I was a glass half empty person. And so who I am today is very different, but I developed those characteristics of resilience in a couple of different ways. The first thing is I really became conscious of what I was feeding myself. And I shifted to only feeding myself things that would help empower me, things that would help me to grow, things that would develop me, what the experts were saying. I kind of did what I suspect you did, in that I was listening to podcasts and I was listening to those inspirational and motivational videos on YouTube, taking walks, crying, like just crying out all this crap and all these thoughts that I had about myself. And I was constantly feeding myself different programming because I
Mm.
was like, I have to reprogram a lot of stuff in here, like a lot of beliefs about how I'm not enough and I'll never be good enough, and for anybody, as a mom, as a wife, as a leader, whatever. And so feeding myself, so like I am telling you, constant, you guys. This was not like, I'm just going to nibble on personal development. It was like, I am going to immerse myself in this. That was the first thing. The second thing is I'm a huge believer that if you want to be resilient, you have to tie what you're doing to a deep, like soul-centered meaning. One of my favorite books is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And he talks about how people that are resilient and people that make it through really hard times, they do it because they have found meaning in the suffering, and they have found meaning in the hard thing, and they've attached some kind of meaning to why they need to survive or why they need to be successful. Jim Rohn also talks about this, how we need other people and other people need us. And you can only get so far when your intentions are only for yourself. But when there are other people involved and other people need you and you need them, like you show up in a different way. And so a lot of the resilience, because as I've been building these businesses over the last 7.5 years, just to give you some understanding, my husband and I went through 4 years ago, like major, like disconnection, like just really, just stuff in marriage, right?
Yeah.
Also, I had a sixth baby. Also, I had a business falling out with a business partner that wasn't in alignment, and just like a lot of crap happening. My daughter being diagnosed with a chronic illness. My husband being shoved out of his job at an ER by a friend that he went to college with that stabbed him in the back. Like
Wow.
all kinds of crap
It never
happening.
comes in ones. I feel like anytime you're going through crap, there's like 5 things. You're like, all right, enough.
Uncle, like I'm gonna cry uncle here, right? All
Yeah.
the things. And experienced also another season of depression in there, right? And the thing that always gets me back up is that I understand that there's a meaning behind what I do. And if I decide not to show up, like what's the ripple effect? Who benefits if I show up? Who suffers if I don't show up? And so that resiliency piece is for me really tied to I feed myself like
Mm.
really, really well with good habits and good things that I listen to, and even what I put in my body, how I take care of my physical body. You guys, I'm 45 and I like have the energy of a 25-year-old, but I feed myself in a different way and take care of this vessel really, really, like it is so important. And then I am so deeply tied to meaning. I listen in the world of like self. And I do believe like in self-love. We talked about this on my podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think that sometimes the pendulum swings too far to like the self-serving. What's in it for me? I don't do anything for anyone for free. Like I know my value. Snap, snap, snap. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And how can we get back to deep soul meaning if we understood that the way that we show up and the way that we fight and the way that we persevere, it's making our character deeper and us stronger, but it is our kids are seeing it. Our family members are seeing it. The people that we lead are seeing it. People on social media that we don't even know are watching. Like
Yeah.
it matters that we show up. And so when I'm in the worst possible place, similar to what you do, I think like, who can I help today? Who can I serve? Because like really, I just want to crawl under the covers and like cry. But like
Yeah.
that's not really, maybe I'll cry, but I'll get out and then I'll do something for somebody else.
Yeah.
That's
Getting
that
into a
resilience.
place of service and like knowing that you're helping others, like that shifts my perspective so much. Like when I feel like everything around me is falling apart, but I can hop on a call with somebody for 30 minutes and shift their perspective, all of a sudden I'm in such a better mood just from helping that individual. And I think people lose sight of that so much, especially when you've created success. It's
Yeah.
easier to say no. It's easier to say, I can't help you. It's easier to do all those things, or I'm too busy, or I don't have time, or whatever, it's just crazy. So one of my favorite quotes of all time is, excuses are the nails that built the house of failure. And
Mm,
so when I hear you speak about how people say to you, well, of course, like you were able to do, you had a supportive husband and you had this and that, right? I just look at that as an excuse to say, well, I can't do it. And so I'm going to find a reason in you that's different than me that I can't do it. So what would you say to somebody who's in that victim mindset, who's making excuses for their success? How can they break that pattern for themselves and create a more positive mindset?
I would say I understand you and I feel you because I'll be really honest here. Like there were periods of time as I was building my business and I would hear from like certain experts or whatever. And I'd be like, that's great, but you don't have any kids. Or that's nice, but you're a man and you probably have a wife at home cooking and cleaning and doing all the things so you can have your 2-hour morning routine. And
Yeah.
I would just like, you're laughing, right? We all do this. We all look at what everybody else has and we use it as a qualifier that justifies us not doing anything. And I used to do it too. So I am not here to judge you. I'm here to just say, how is that helping you change your life?
Mm,
It literally doesn't matter at all what this millionaire with no kids is telling you to do. And like you're saying, well, that's nice. Like it doesn't matter at all. Me saying that, it literally lets me off the hook, except there's a piece of me that knows I'm playing small and that knows that's just an excuse. And me saying that is not going to help me to change my life. And so I shifted to like, well, that's true, but I also still have this goal. And so the way that I do it is not going to look how she does it or how he does it. And I appreciate their suggestions and they have wisdom. I can't discount somebody's wisdom and somebody's experience just because their situation is not the same as mine. And I think we do that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. We like cancel culture, or we silence, or well, they just don't understand. And anytime you say, well, they just don't understand, you've literally just put yourself in the victim seat. So it's like, do you want to be a victim or do you want to be a victor? Do you want to be the person that's like, in spite of this lack of education, in spite of these 6 kids, when I had my 6, 11 and under, in spite of no education, like I did it. Okay. And if I'm going to do it in my way, how am I going to do it? So now instead of saying like, well, I don't think I can do that, I've shifted it to, if I were to do that, how might I do it?
Mm.
Like, if I were to make that happen, what would that look like? And it's like my own little sort of vision casting that takes me out of this place of being disempowered. Like, it's not fair. They have this and this and this and this too. Well, if I were to do that, how might I do it? Because if you ask your brain really good questions, your brain it's brilliant. It's going to come up with a way. It's going to come up with a solution. No matter if you're going to night school, like one of my friends that had to go to night school as a single mom to get her law degree, Rebecca Zung, right? Like she
Hmm.
was a single mom with young kids and went to night school. Like she could have been like, I can't. I'm a single parent. I'm unable to change my life. Instead, she's like, well, how can I do this? Right? So that's kind of like, I understand you if you're listening, but I want to ask you, how's that serving you?
Yeah. It's such a powerful question to ask yourself, to be able to get out of that victim mindset. So I'm so glad that you shared that. Now, you mentioned about how you're impact driven, right? So you're all about impact and you're helping women entrepreneurs all over the world, create their dream life and create the things that they want in their life and live a life freely, really. Because if you look at it, even though there can be chaos and there's moments of, I don't like this word, but moments of hustle and moments of these things,
Yeah.
you're creating the life that you want. So what is your definition of impact and how are you making that in the world right now?
Well, I want to start by saying this. I know that some people listening are going to automatically feel like they're not making a big enough impact. And so this idea of what's big enough or what's enough, I think sometimes is warped because of what we see on social media or how many followers this person has or how many tickets this person has sold. And so we're kind of valuing the worth based on like, how much money we're making or how many people we're reaching or followers we have. And I think that we have to stay centered in the fact that impact, like even just like one person is not one person. One person goes on to be another person or their entire children or their entire lineage or their organization. And so we have to be like, we have to have expanded vision for what impact is, because I can even get caught up in this, like, oh my gosh, am I getting enough downloads on my podcast or enough people coming to my event? And I have to be like, whoa, Brooke, like if you help 50 people, that's not just 50 people. And so those of you that feel like you are not helping enough people, serve the people really, really well that you're helping, and your impact will go through them to other people, but also eventually expand. But impact to me is really just about like, I really have this desire for just helping people to believe in themselves. Like, even if they can just come across a post of mine and I help them for the day to believe a little bit more in themselves or to get up and put their big girl pants on and get to work on their dream, like, okay, that is enough. And I guess we just kind of have to ask ourselves, what is enough? And maybe we need to adjust that measuring stick. I have really, really big dreams and goals, but also I always come back to this center. Those of you that are impact driven listening, it's like, serve well those who are near and those who are far will come. That's a Chinese proverb. And it's like, just do a really great job serving, caring for, adding value to the people that are near. And all those other people, like, they're going to come. Your business is going to grow. Stop being so obsessed with the metrics and the numbers and the money. Because as I was growing, I wasn't just thinking about the money and the dollar side. And I was like, ooh, what can I help this person achieve? And what can I help this person succeed? And yes, the lights are on. I can see she believes in herself. Like, wow, her confidence is through the roof. And so we have to focus on the gains. We have to focus on the wins and not what we don't have, right? What's not there. When we can focus on that, we're going to make a bigger impact. I feel like some people, you can tell they're so focused on like how popular they are and how much money they're going to make. And those people are not making the kind of impact that those of you that are listening that are focusing on the one are making.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. And they're not my people. Like very quickly I go, yeah, you don't need to be in my space. Like I'm good with not being friends with you or whatever. And I mean,
Right.
it's funny, I've grown multiple businesses / events / retreats all through word of mouth. Like good luck. Go find a landing page for my mastermind. Go find a landing page for the last event that I did. They don't exist.
Right.
And like, it's such a business model of serving one.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest will follow, right? And we do get caught up in the metrics. I did for the longest time of like, why don't I have more followers on social media? And why isn't this happening? And why isn't this happening? And as things have grown, guess what? All that still matters is that one. Like it doesn't matter how many people are quote unquote following you. So I want to ask you a question that I ask everybody on the show.
Yeah.
It's a 2-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
I'm going to try to remember the second part. You might have to remind me because,
Just let me know.
kids, like there's some short-term memory loss in there, right? Okay. Anyway, what is my definition of success? My definition of success is living a life in alignment. It's also what my event's called, Align, because I experienced success and got a lot of money, but my life got out of alignment, and that didn't feel like success to me. And so success is living a life in alignment, which allows you to feel peace, which allows you to just kind of settle into who you are and be authentically who you are, like you said, without hustling for your worth and hustling for the next goal and never being satisfied. I just feel like success is like that peace and that joy and like, you're in your zone doing exactly what you're supposed to do when you're doing it, and wherever you are, there you are, and you're present with the people that you're with, and you're just, it's just not this endless sort of grind for more and more and more. It is really being in alignment and at peace with where you're at and who you are.
I love it.
Second question, what was it?
What are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
3 things I do every single day to ensure success for myself. I don't know if these will surprise you or be earth-shattering. One of them is I move my body every day. I I really truly believe that the physical state of my body is one of my secret weapons. It's not about how I look, it's about how I feel, and it's about generating energy genuinely. And I can out energize almost anybody because I take it seriously. Like, this is my vessel to experience life in and to create from. And so I move my body every single day. The second thing that I do to be successful, to ensure that I move forward, is I pour into and love on at least 3 people every single day. I am the queen of, like, I'll be out on a run and I'll think of someone. I'm like, hey, so I was thinking about you. And like, if you're getting a treadmill, like, message from me, or like I'm out on a run, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I genuinely like want people to know that they're special, that they're important, that they're loved. And so I make at least 3 personal connections, but honestly, it's more most of the time where I'm just pouring into and loving on people. The third thing that I do every single day personally is whatever your beliefs are. Like, I'm not here, it's not about religion or anything, but I would be remiss if I said like I didn't have a spiritual connection and like this really strong relationship with my creator. Like, I know that my gifts and my talents are a gift from God, and I know that if I am tapped into and tuned into whatever that is for you. It's like tuning in spiritually to find that alignment, to be able to show up with the energy that I have, and to be able to show up with my gifts and my creativity, and to be able to like coach people and do all of this stuff. Like if I'm not connected to that source for me, it's like there's a block. I can't show up in the same way, and I can't show up in the brilliance that I can show up if I'm connected. So I connect through like prayer or music or, you know, devotionals or whatever it is. It doesn't look the same every single day, but I tap into a higher power so that I can be sort of supernatural in how I show up in my business and for other people.
I love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? How do they follow you? How do they hear more about your events, your retreats, all that fun stuff?
I mean, Instagram's great. Hemingway Half Dozen is where you can find me. Obviously, Half Dozen Kids, but brookehemingway.com, you can always find out about my events. I do several events every year, and one coming up in August that's a fundraiser for one person and their family that's been challenged with childhood cancer coming back a second time.
Mm.
And so, yeah, you can find out about it, follow me on Instagram or on my website.
Awesome. I love it. And like I said, I wrap up every single interview with this question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
In my life, my biggest moment of growth was in realizing that even though I was a high performer and, ooh, I get a little emotional, and a perfectionist, and I could really make things happen. Like I am a make it happen person. Was when I realized, like 4.5 years ago, when my husband and I got in a fight that just sort of came to a head, that I really needed to work on my own crap. Like I really needed to heal. And in order to do the healing work and work deep down in healing the hurts and the things that I felt about myself and experienced growing up, if I didn't do the healing work, I was going to absolutely reach a ceiling, and I was not going to be able to bust through that ceiling. And that it was so significant, like eternally significant, like absolutely important, that I stopped and slowed down and did the healing work that I needed to do to grow myself so that I didn't literally drop a bomb in my life and destroy all the things that were so important to me. And sometimes as performers and entrepreneurs, we don't want to slow down and we don't want to have to do that work. But that for me was so pivotal and so life-changing for me. And to give myself that space to do the healing and to uncover what was underneath this need to hustle and strive and endlessly work and become a workaholic and be addicted to work and performance. Like it was that realization, like, Brooke, you got to deal with your crap and you got to do it now.
Mm. Brooke, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with my audience, but more importantly, continuing to make an impact in the world and showing people, no matter what their circumstances are, no matter what's going on in their life, that they can create the life that they want as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I loved being here.